Continuing on with my alternative design, I want to do something that'll help me visualize the changes that I make and maybe inspire me to make a different change. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start the appearance overrides. I can use the letter A key, or I can just right click somewhere on the screen and go to appearance from the context menu. In the appearance overrides are a lot of different options. I'm going to go under plastic and then to textured and grab the random texture, the plastic texture random, drag it onto my model. Now I don't want it to be black, so I'll go in and maybe explore some different color options and probably end up something more toward the white end of the spectrum or just something a little more neutral. Whatever I want to do, I can change the color along the way. But for right now, I'll just call that good. So I'll say done and I'll close that out. With that change made, now I want to start to sculpt the model a little more. I'll go into the Sculpt workspace by clicking the Create Form tool. Once I'm in the Sculpt workspace, I'll go under the Utilities pull down and select the Convert tool. I'll tell it that I want to take a B-rep face and convert it to a T-spline. I'll just accept the 4 faces by 4 faces. Then I'll use Edit Form and select the faces in the middle. Maybe change my coordinate space based on the local coordinate space so it's better aligned. And then I can just give a slight pull up on the middle based on the center point. This will just give a little bit of crown to that surface. In fact, let me just go ahead and enter 2 because I only want to pull that up 2 millimeters. For the change that I need to make, I'm going to use Edit Form to pull the edges out away from the model. I'll just do a couple double clicks on the edge. It'll select all the long edges, maybe use symmetry to make the process a little simpler. I'll update that form, then I'll select Finish Form. I'll go back to the model workspace and use the Replace Face tool, selecting the top of the solid model and then the T-spline body that I created. With the top modified, I'll use Create Form again, and then I'll use a 2-point plane adding symmetry to create a sculpted back for the phone recess. I'll set my options, maybe add a couple more edges, and then use Edit Form to make the changes that I want to my model. With the changes done, I'll return to the model workspace and use Replace Face once again to add that contour to the back of that relief. Right now, I have a lot of sharp edges on this model. I'll use the Press Pull tool and start selecting edges to add fillets to them. I'll drag them in and set a radius. This is where having a texture can help you get a better feel for what you're working on. Now I want to create an opening for my screen to show through. I'll click my left mouse over where I think the screen is and select the face of the screen right through my current model. Then I'll start the rectangle tool. And just to make things easier to pick, I'll use the slice option from the sketch palette. This will open it up. I'm able to trace the rectangle. Then I can use offset to make sure my plastic overlaps the screen. I'll then start the press pull tool again, this time selecting the profile so I get an extrude, and I'll add some draft to it as well. This is represented as the taper angle in the dialog. Now there's a hole in the plastic that goes all the way down to the screen. I'll add additional fillets to the model. Now what I want to do is hollow it out. So I'll turn off the other components and I'll start the shell tool, selecting the opening of the screen and the bottom. I'll set the shell thickness to 2 millimeters and click OK, and I have a hollow model. Maybe I'll turn off my layout grid for a little clarity. When I turn the interface board, I see that I forgot to add reliefs for my buttons. So I'll turn on the sketch that I used to create the opening for the screen, then turn the interface panel component back on. I'll edit the sketch, and I'll project the buttons into my sketch. Then I'll do a little offset, change the projected edges to construction geometry so it's easier to pick. Then I'll start my extrude tool. Even though the housing is turned off, I can start the extrude tool and then turn the housing on. This makes it just a little easier to see what's going on. I can click and hold the profile if I need to, and I'll create my extrusions to cut, making sure that I'm not going to remove the buttons when I do. Now these extrusions don't go all the way through, so I'll need to modify my shell. I'll take my new extrusions and move them before the shell in the timeline so that when I edit the shell, I can select the bottom of those extrusions to be removed by the shell feature as well. So now I've got holes through the housing for my buttons. I'll turn on my other components and reactivate the top level of the design. Now I have a much better feel for how my design looks.